military career over to the final second because I had TRICARE, and the military was there for me and got her through it. So I'm really gotten into this for health care, so I may not be up to speed as much on the specifics of it. It's how many carriers now? 10 or 11. And my take on it is that if you place another carrier in the Western Pacific in Guam, as well as have one in Japan, what a posture that is. 2 carriers, 80% of the time, always ready to come together in order to provide you from that posture the absolute right capability in the most harshest of environments, a sudden strike to survive and prevail. Then you look at the thousands of small little vessels that might come across to whatever island that country intends to be aggressive against. But if you can just identify in the middle of the night the 47 LCMs that carry about 80% of their forces, the whole invasion stops. Imagine if we had the knowledge to make sure that each F-18 JSF of the future could know exactly to get just 47 targets, and it's over. The whole invasion is over. It takes 2 carriers. You have to be postured correctly. And so my take on it is, have we gone about to make sure that we dominate that cyberspace in order to know where those precious few targets, we have to know where they are at all times in order to target? And have we thought through the cost benefit of this nation of placing a carrier in Guam, and studies have been done on it, at a fairly cost-efficient rate, rather than trying to keep a second carrier in the Western Pacific, where it takes at least 5 in the force structure to keep one forward deployed at all times, in times of tenseness. My second example, I guess, would be submarines. It's no longer, in my mind, platform upon platform. It's force upon force, or capability upon capability. It's hard for me to imagine trying to have sufficient submarines in order to begin tracking in a very quick war, which is the worst case, the ability to begin to have one sub on one of theirs, particularly when they almost outnumber us, almost 2 to 1. And so my take on it is, what's happened to the programs that many talked about some years when the Navy did submit to the Congress 2 30-year shipbuilding plans in fiscal year 06, one for 260 ships if you dominated cyberspace, and one for 320 ships if you did not dominate cyberspace. Last year they came across with 1 shipbuilding plan, 340. But if you had gone the 260 ship way, controlling cyberspace at a more cost-efficient but much more effective, the modeling tended to show, capability, that would have taken a different anti-submarine warfare approach. The ability to have had the sensors placed correctly, sometimes ad hoc, dropped from the sky in a ring that could communicate and pick it up, all the sounds that are needed in order to have a vessel fly and drop the torpedo. So 2 examples of where I believe posture and potentially dominating cyberspace can truly give you a force that's best not measured by how many, but by where are you placed and what's the capability in cyberspace to use it well. Second, global war of terror. I was always taken with how well our submarine, our anti-submarine force did during the Cold War. They knew almost by the whole number and the name of the captain of the submarine when it got underway from Murmansk and crossed the Greenland, Iceland, United Kingdom gap. Man, we had them pickled. Our wonderful array system would identify who it was, and we could track them from there on out if we desired. We guarded the strategic approaches as a naval force with Britain, with allies who let us have sensors up in that arena, the strategic approaches to the venture of a war if it were to occur. We knew from the very moment, and we had them from that moment if we tracked well. To my mind, and when you look at the global war of terror, the Navy has a very similar role to play in our home games. I can imagine a fleet. It's not necessarily one of 1,000 ships, because again, to me, it's not the numbers, it's the capability. Where in this global war of terror, where every vessel upon the sea is similarly fingerprinted, just like the Soviet Union's submarines and their ships. I'll never forget having command of a carrier battle group, and they came in and said a Krivac just got underway in the Black Sea. Man, our satellites knew who it was, what it was, fingerprinted the radar. And I can remember in my last year in the Navy doing an experiment, 2 of them, to where we sent up to the satellites a software program to see if the satellite could track a Furuno radar, because there's thousands upon hundreds of thousands of them out there, each of them identifiable as a unique emitter. And you know what? The experiment worked. And then I remember another where we paid about $40,000 to do another experiment. Those miles upon miles of unused fiber optic lines that lay on the bottom of the ocean, unused. And so we just merely hooked up a cable to one of them and said, imagine that this was the Malacca Straits, and every vessel that goes across, we begin fingerprinting its propeller, because every mariner knows every propeller has a different signature. And imagine, again, as every ship goes through that strait, you take a photograph of that ship. Soon you know who's who on the zoo, in the zoo. Much as we did the Soviet Navy. More challenging, yes. Less challenging if we'd begun this years ago. But in my mind, we, the Navy, or you, the Navy, protect the strategic approaches of this nation. And we should know, as we did as the Soviet Navy got underway, whether it was a surface vessel or a submarine, we had placed ourselves well with satellites and underwater sensors, as we could do across the mouths of every small entree of every ocean with allies, and begin to understand who they are, so that the next time we have a ship get underway from the North Korea Peninsula, or North Korea on the Korean Peninsula, we don't have to, as we've done, have a very expensive $1 billion submarine try to track it all the way through the Indian Ocean. But rather, we have the right sensors, the right satellites, to kind of just track it in a very cost-efficient way. And so we can do the takedown before it goes into Iran, if we so care to, in a time or place of our choosing, in a much more efficient and effective way. Pirates. I probably do believe that the Constitution had it very well stated. We raise armies, we maintain navies, because it was about the commerce at the time. And so my take on it has been that I understand it's 4 times the size of Texas. But imagine if we had Global Hawk, and I imagine we soon will, that's out there, flying 24 hours a day, with the right SAR, ISAR radar looking down, hundreds of thousands of square miles, or several of them, being able to link a picture to a littoral combat ship of the future, to be able with the right helicopter to take off and interdict. In my mind, again, it is the kind of posture or capability, not how many. You do need a certain amount. That kind of bodes for the argument of, are we measuring ourselves with the right capability? The third is presence. I've mentioned one. I think our different posture in the Western Pacific, to where I believe is the strategic gravity for the United States over this century, is in the Western Pacific. I can always remember Tony Lake at the National Security Council, when I worked for him as Director of Defense Policy, coming in a situation about every 2 or 3 weeks and saying, for about 5 months till he got it, what's our China strategy? This global war of terror is a challenge, but it's a tactical issue, one that can and will be prevailed upon. But the essence of the challenge for us, economically, diplomatically, financially, and security-wise, in the normal sense of the term, is truly in the Western Pacific. And so a posture there, not hesitant to move a larger vessel to Guam because someone's worried about forced structure rather than forced posture, to my mind, is something that needs to be argued. If you really